Most drivers worry about what happens on the road. A bad tire, a dark rest area, a voice on the CB that should not know their name. But sometimes the worst thing is not what follows the truck. It is what gets written down before the driver ever gets there. Tonight, these are 7 trucker horror stories about routes, records, cameras, and paperwork that seem to know too much. Comment your location and the time you're listening from. And if you have ever driven through the night, you may understand why the quiet parts are sometimes the hardest to explain. I was running I-40 West that night, Knoxville, toward Little Rock, with a dry van full of boxed medical supplies and a delivery window that did not leave much room for mistakes. Nothing about the load was special. No hazmat placards, no reefer alarms, no oversized paperwork clipped to the dash. Just a regular overnight run, the kind I had done enough times that I knew where the rough pavement started and which truck stops were worth avoiding after midnight. My fuel card was in the little vinyl sleeve I kept in the cup holder. My phone was mounted to the left of the wheel. The ELD tablet was behaving for once. I had a half-tank clear weather, and dispatch had already approved a fuel stop near Jackson, Tennessee. I remember feeling almost relieved about that. The night was boring in the best possible way. A little after 1 in the morning, my phone buzzed against the mount. I glanced over because fleet alerts usually meant something simple. Missed message, route update, fuel authorization. The screen said fuel purchase approved, Jackson, Tennessee, pump 6. I looked at the GPS. I was not in Jackson. I was not even close enough to pretend I was. The route still showed 40-something miles before the exit. For a few seconds, I just stared through the windshield and let the truck roll straight. There was no car beside me, no way station lights, no fuel island, just black interstate reflectors and the red taillights of another rig far ahead. I picked up the fuel card and turned it over in my hand. Same card, same sleeve, same last 4 digits printed on the back. I had not stopped since east of Nashville, and I had not handed it to anyone. At first, I gave it the boring explanation. The system probably lagged. Maybe the alert had been delayed from a previous stop. Maybe another driver's card got crossed with mine in the fleet account. That kind of thing happens more than people think. Computers make mistakes, and night dispatch usually has to clean them up with one eye open. I almost called right then I didn't. I had already been the guy who reported every little system issue. Once a dispatcher joked that I treated a fuel receipt like evidence in a murder case. So I told myself to wait until the next safe pull-off. Then the phone buzzed again. Receipt available. This time I tapped it open while keeping one hand on the wheel. The receipt had the truck stop name, Jackson, Tennessee, pump 6, diesel, my tractor number. And underneath that it had my trailer number too. I waited until the next wide shoulder sign passed, and then called dispatch through the hands-free. I did not want to pull over on I-40 in the dark for what still might have been a computer problem. Trucks were moving fast around me, and the right lane had that rough Tennessee bounce that makes the whole cab feel loose. The night dispatcher was named Carla. I had talked to her maybe 3 times before. She sounded tired, but not annoyed. I told her I had a fuel alert showing Jackson pump 6, and that I was nowhere near Jackson yet. There was a pause while she pulled it up. Then she said it's showing active. I asked her what that meant. She said the card had been approved at the pump, but the transaction had not fully closed. Driver ID was mine. Tractor number was mine. Trailer number was mine. Even the route code matched the load I was on. That was the first moment I stopped thinking about it as a normal glitch. I looked down at my cup holder again. My fuel card was still tucked behind my license in the little black wallet. I reached over and touched it with 2 fingers just to prove to myself it was there. That felt stupid after I did it, but I did it anyway. Carla asked, "Are you sure you're not already there?" I almost snapped at her. I did not. Night dispatch deals with tired drivers all the time, and tired drivers say things wrong. I told her I was still east of Jackson. My GPS showed 42 miles. My ELD location matched that. She typed for a while. I could hear the keys through the headset. Then she said they entered an odometer. I asked her to repeat that. She read the number to me. It was not exact, but it was close enough that I looked at my dash and felt my mouth go dry. The number on my truck was only off by a few miles. That was not something a random pump mistake should have known. I told Carla to cancel the transaction if she could. She said she would try, but if the pump had already authorized, it might still settle. She told me to keep the receipt if I ended up stopping there. I said I was not stopping there. That came out faster than I meant it to. There was another pause. Then Carla said that was probably smart. She marked the Jackson fuel stop as suspicious and told me to use manual approval at the next staffed truck stop. I took the next few miles slower than usual. Not scared exactly, more careful. Every pair of headlights behind me looked normal, then too steady, then normal again. I kept telling myself cloned cards existed. Bad data existed. Fleet systems made mistakes. Then the CB cracked. It was not aimed at me. Just normal Channel 19 chatter, broken and thin under the engine noise. A driver said something about Jackson being backed up at the fuel island. Another voice asked which pump. The first voice said 6. I turned the CB volume down. A minute later, Carla came back on the line. Her voice sounded different now, less sleepy. She said, "Your truck just checked out from that pump." I was still on the interstate passing a sign that said Jackson was 31 miles away. I did not stop in Jackson. That is the part I kept repeating later because everyone wanted to pull the story back to that truck stop. I never took that exit. I passed it in the right lane with both hands on the wheel, watching the glow of the fuel island slide by behind the trees. Nothing followed me off the interstate because I did not get off. Carla stayed on the line until I was past the exit. Then she told me to continue to a bigger stop farther west, one with a staffed fuel desk and cameras. She said she would put the fuel card under manual approval until morning. I almost thanked her. Then I realized I was still angry she had asked if I was sure where I was. That bothered me more than it should have. Not because she was wrong to ask. Because for about half a second after she asked it, I had looked at the road signs like maybe I had somehow missed 40 miles. That is what tired driving does to you. It makes impossible things feel like your fault. The truck stop I chose was busy enough to feel safe. Bright canopy lights, drivers walking dogs, 2 guys arguing near the air pump, a reefer unit rattling 3 spaces over, normal noise. I parked close to the building, locked the cab, and took my wallet inside. The woman at the fuel desk did not understand at first. I showed her my card, then the alert on my phone, then gave her the location. She asked if I wanted to buy fuel there. I said no. I needed a copy of a transaction that should not exist. She called a manager. He came out in a gray hoodie with a keyring clipped to his belt. He looked like he had handled every strange driver problem before and expected this one to be boring too. It was not boring for long. After he checked the system, he printed a pending receipt from the fleet network. He laid it on the counter between us. Jackson, Tennessee. Pump 6, diesel, timestamp, tractor number, trailer number, last 4 digits of the fuel card, route code. Then I saw the odometer. It was 3 miles under what my dash showed right then. The manager said it could be a cloned card. Carla said the same thing through my phone speaker. Both of them sounded relieved to have a normal word for it. I wanted that word to work. Then the manager tapped the bottom of the receipt and asked, "Are these your initials?" They were, not my signature, just 2 letters. The way I wrote them on quick paperwork when I was tired and did not want to fill out my whole name. The first letter leaned a little too far right. Mine did that too. I asked for a copy. Then I asked him to note the time and save whatever camera footage they had around the fuel desk, even though the transaction had happened somewhere else. I knew that sounded messy. I did not care anymore. Carla froze the card. She told me to stay parked for 10 minutes while she documented the load notes. I stood inside near the coffee machines, watching my truck through the glass. Nobody went near it, I am sure of that. When I walked back outside, there was a piece of paper tucked under my driver's side wiper. At first, I thought it was an ad. Some truck stops still get people slipping repair flyers or chrome polish cards under blades. Then I saw the yellow edge. I pulled it free and held it under the cab light. It was another receipt. Same Jackson station, same pump 6, same timestamp. This one had a line at the bottom. The first copy did not have. Driver left before signature. I looked across the lot. Drivers were climbing into sleepers. Someone was laughing near the entrance. A dog barked once and stopped. My dash cam chirped from inside the cab. Motion event recorded. The timestamp was exactly 1 minute earlier. I got back in the cab and locked both doors before I touched the dash cam. That is another thing people ask about. Why did I not walk around the lot and look for whoever left it? Because by then it was not a fuel mistake anymore. Someone had put paper on my truck while I was inside watching the truck, or they had done it before I looked. Neither answer made me want to stand outside in the dark. The motion clip was 12 seconds long. It showed the front of my hood, the glare from the canopy lights, and a smear of rain on the windshield. No person crossed the frame, no arm reached in, no shadow passed over the glass. The yellow receipt was already under the wiper when the clip started. I watched it 3 times, then I stopped, because there was nothing else to find. The camera had only started recording after the thing it was supposed to catch had already happened. I called Carla again. She did not sound tired now. She told me to stay locked in the cab, send photos of both receipts, and not use the fuel card again under any condition. She also told me not to go back to Jackson. I told her I had no plan to. For a minute, we both just listened to the truck idle. Then she said she was routing me straight to the receiver if I had enough hours. If not, she wanted me at a guarded yard, not another open lot. She said she was marking the load notes as a suspected card compromise and possible driver safety issue. That phrase helped. Driver safety issue. It made it sound like a real thing, a company thing, not just me sitting in a truck with a piece of yellow paper I could not explain. I checked my ELD before I pulled out. There was a stop marker on the route history near Jackson. 4 minutes. Not long enough for fuel, not long enough for paperwork. Just a little square on the map sitting at the exit I had passed without slowing down. I took a photo of that too. The rest of the drive was quiet. No more CB chatter, no more alerts. Carla checked in twice, once near Memphis, once before the Arkansas line. Both times she asked normal questions, but her voice had that careful tone people use when they do not want to admit they are worried. I delivered the load in Little Rock after sunrise. The receiver signed the bills. The seal was intact. The trailer looked fine. Nothing had been stolen. Nobody from the company called me into an office. By noon, the official explanation was already forming around the edges. Probably a cloned card. Probably a delayed system error. Probably a bad odometer entry. I let them say it. I needed them to say it. I still had to work. They replaced my fuel card the next week and told me to change my PIN. I kept the yellow receipt in a folder behind the passenger seat for a while. Then I threw it away at a rest area in Missouri because I hated knowing it was still in the cab with me. That should have been the end of it. The part I do not tell people at work happened the morning after the delivery. I was filling out my paper backup log mostly out of habit. I like paper. It makes me feel like there is still one record that belongs to me. Under the notes for that run, someone had already written a line. Jackson Pump 6, don't stop twice. The handwriting was close to mine. Not perfect. Close enough that I had to look at it for a long time before I was sure I had not written it myself. I have always hated running deadhead at night. People think it feels easier because you are not dragging weight. No loaded trailer, no appointment clock pressing on your neck, no customer calling dispatch every 20 minutes asking where you are. It is not easier, not to me. A truck without a trailer sounds wrong. Every rattle in the cab gets louder. Every gust of wind hits different. The rear end feels too light, like the truck wants to wander even when the road is straight. That night, I had just dropped a refrigerated trailer outside Amarillo. It was a clean drop. No argument at the gate, no rejected seal, no extra waiting. Dispatch sent me south toward another yard for the morning, and I was supposed to run bobtail down US 287 until I found a place to stop. I remember being in a decent mood when I left. That bothers me now. The fuel was good. My hours were fine. The GPS had the route loaded. I had coffee in the cup holder, and Channel 19 turned low on the CB just enough to catch road chatter if something happened ahead. For a while, there was nothing but wind. Texas does that at night. The road keeps going, and the dark fields on both sides make it feel like you are driving across the bottom of a dry ocean. Once in a while, a farmhouse light would appear way out there, then disappear behind the mirror. I was a few miles past Claude when the CB cracked. Not loud, just a dry little pop through the speaker. Then a man's voice said, "White Freightliner, you missed your turn." I was driving a white Freightliner. I did not answer. There are a lot of white Freightliners on the road. Even at night, even on a quiet stretch, that sentence did not have to mean me. I checked the mirrors. There were headlights far back, maybe 2 sets. One pickup had passed me earlier, but I had not seen another bobtail for a while. I told myself somebody was talking to another driver, or messing around. Truckers do that. Bored drivers say strange things on the radio just to see who bites. I turned the volume down a little. The road stayed empty. Maybe 3 minutes later, the same voice came back. Deadhead, no trailer, still west of Claude. My hand tightened on the wheel before I meant it to. That was closer, too close. I looked at the mirrors again. The headlights behind me were still back there, but not close enough to read markings. I had no company logo big on the side, no trailer number, nothing that should have made me easy to pick out from a distance. I still tried to make it normal. Maybe someone had seen me leave the warehouse. Maybe the pickup behind me had a better view than I thought. Maybe there was another white bobtail somewhere ahead or behind, and I was doing the thing tired drivers do, making every random comment about myself. I did not touch the mic. That is important. I never answered him. The GPS showed my next turn coming up in a few miles. Dispatch had sent me a route through a smaller road that cut time before I rejoined the highway farther south. I had not liked it when I first saw it, but it was legal for the truck and it came straight from the company tablet. The CB cracked again. The voice said, "Don't take that one." I looked from the radio to the GPS. The highlighted turn on the screen was the same one coming up ahead. I did not take the turn. That sounds like a brave decision now, but it did not feel brave then. It felt annoying. I was a grown man sitting alone in a truck, letting some stranger on a radio make me second-guess a company route. The exit came up on the right. The GPS told me to prepare to turn. The company tablet chimed once like it was reminding me to behave. I stayed in the lane and drove past it. For about 10 seconds, nothing happened. Then the GPS recalculated. It wanted me to take another farm road farther ahead. I ignored that too. I was not going to chase shortcuts in the dark because dispatch software thought it knew better than the highway. The CB stayed quiet. That almost made me feel stupid. Maybe the driver on the radio had been warning someone else. Maybe I had just made myself nervous for no reason and added 20 minutes to a deadhead run. I checked my mirrors again. The same headlights were behind me, but spread out now. One set dipped low and disappeared behind a rise. The other stayed far back, steady enough to bother me, but not enough to prove anything. I kept both hands on the wheel and told myself to stop building a story out of static. A few miles later, the voice came back. "Left lane's cleaner." I looked ahead. The road in front of me was dark and flat. I could not see anything in the right lane except asphalt and the white line. I did not move right away. That is another detail I remember clearly. I did not obey it like a dog. I waited until my headlights reached farther down the road. Then I saw it. A long strip of tire tread was lying in the right lane, curled black against black pavement. It was not huge, but at highway speed with a bobtail hitting it wrong, could still throw the truck hard enough to wake you up fast. I eased left. The tread passed under the passenger side mirror and vanished behind me. For a few seconds I felt grateful. That was the worst part. Some piece of me wanted to reach for the mic and say thanks. The voice had helped me. It had told me before I could see the problem. But the way he said it was wrong. Not debris in the right lane, not watch yourself southbound. Just left lane's cleaner, like he was talking to someone he was already watching. I left the mic alone. Instead, I reached over and changed the CB from 19 to another channel. I picked one at random. The speaker went quiet except for a faint hiss. That helped for maybe 5 seconds. Then the same dry click came through. Wrong channel. I stared at the radio so long I drifted toward the shoulder rumble strip. The vibration snapped me back. I corrected hard enough that my coffee slid in the cup holder and hit the plastic wall. I turned the volume down all the way. The speaker clicked again. No voice that time, just the click. I told myself that did not mean anything. Radios bleed over. Bad wiring does strange things. Somebody with power could step over channels if they wanted to. Still, I knew something had changed. Before that, I could pretend he saw me from another vehicle. After that, I had to accept he was not just calling out to a random white truck. He was following what I did inside the cab. I picked up my phone and called Mason. Mason had driven longer than me and complained about everything which made him useful. If something was normal, he would tell you it was normal and make you feel dumb for asking. He answered on the third ring and said, "You broke down." I told him no. Then I told him exactly what had happened without making it sound worse. Mason was quiet for once. Then he said it could be radio bleed, could be someone running too much power, could be a guy behind me messing around with a scanner. He told me not to answer, not even once. I said I had not. He said, "Good, don't give him your voice." That sentence sat in the cab with me. I asked if I should pull over. Mason said not on the shoulder, not out there. He told me to get to lights. Fuel Island truck stop anywhere with cameras and other drivers. I checked the GPS. There was a truck stop ahead. Not big, but open all night. I was about to tell Mason the name when the CB clicked again. The power knob was still turned down. The channel was still wrong. A man's voice came through the speaker low and calm. "Don't park by the pumps." Mason heard it too. He stopped talking in the middle of whatever he was about to say. For a second, all I heard through the phone was his breathing and the low hum of his own truck somewhere far away. Then he said, "Was that your radio?" I told him yes. He asked if it was still on. I looked down at the CB. The volume was down. The channel was not 19 anymore. The little power light looked dead from where I sat, but I did not lean over to check the wiring. I was still moving at highway speed on a dark road with wind pushing the cab around. I told Mason the truth. It should be off. He did not make a joke after that. The truck stop sign appeared ahead as a soft red glow over the flat fields. I could see the fuel canopy first, then the restaurant lights, then the dark line of parked trailers along the back row. It was not a big place, but it was open. That was enough. Mason told me not to park where the voice told me not to park just because it told me. Then he changed his mind before I could answer. No, he said. Actually, don't park by the pumps, but don't act like you're listening to him. I almost laughed because that made no sense. Then I understood what he meant. Do the safe thing. Do not make it look like obedience. I took the entrance slow. The fuel island was on my right. There were 3 trucks at the pumps and 1 pickup sitting past the diesel lanes with its lights off. It was white or silver. I could not tell under the canopy glare. I did not stare at it. I kept rolling like I was looking for parking. The pumps would have been the easy choice. Bright, open, close to the building, but they were also exposed. Anybody could walk up from either side while I was boxed in between islands. So I kept going. I found a spot near the front of the lot, close enough to the entrance doors, that people passed by every few minutes. There was a camera mounted under the corner of the building. I could see the black dome of it from the cab. I parked between 2 sleepers, both idling, both with curtains closed. I left the engine running. Mason stayed on the phone while I set the brakes and locked both doors. I did not climb out. I did not go inside for coffee. I sat there with my hands still on the wheel, like I had forgotten what came next. The CB clicked once, no voice. Just that small dry sound. Mason said, "Do you have a dash cam?" I said yes. He told me to mark the clip. Save everything from before the tire tread to now. He said if there was some idiot following me, I would want the audio. That made me feel better. Evidence always does. Even bad evidence. Even evidence you do not understand. I reached up and hit the event button on the dash cam. Before my finger touched it, the dash cam chimed. Audio event saved. I froze with my hands still in the air. Mason asked what happened. I told him the camera had saved an audio event by itself. He asked what triggered it. I looked at the CB. The faceplate was dark. The mic hung loose on its hook. The volume knob was still turned all the way down. I opened the dashcam menu and pulled up the most recent event. The timestamp matched the moment after I parked. The preview thumbnail showed the truck stop lights through the windshield. That was normal. Then I noticed the reflection. In the dark glass, I could see the inside of my cab, the steering wheel, my coffee cup. The corner of the CB radio mounted low under the dash. The power light was not on. The clip had recorded sound anyway. I played the first few seconds. Static filled the cab thin and soft, like someone breathing through paper. Then the voice said, "Good spot." I stopped the clip right there. Mason told me to play it again. I did not want to, but I did. The same static came through the cab speakers of my phone this time, thin and dirty. Then the voice said it again. "Good spot." Mason did not say anything for a few seconds. Then he told me to record the radio with my phone. He wanted the screen, the knobs, the dark power light, everything. I took a video from the driver's seat. I showed the CB faceplate. I showed the volume turned down. I showed the mic hanging there untouched. While I was filming, the radio stayed quiet. That almost made it worse. I sent the dashcam clip to Mason first. Then I sent it to dispatch with a short message that said I was parked at a truck stop. I had possible radio interference, and I did not feel safe continuing until someone had it documented. I did not write that I thought someone was watching me. That sounded too big, too hard to prove. Dispatch called back 10 minutes later. Different person this time. He told me to stay parked if I felt unsafe and write it up as an equipment issue in the morning. He said if anyone approached the truck, I should call the store and then call 911 if I had to. Nobody approached. That is what I keep coming back to. No one knocked. No one stood in front of the truck. No one tried the handle. The pickup near the fuel island was gone when I looked again, but lots of vehicles come and go at truck stops. There was no way to make that mean anything. I sat awake until the sky started to turn gray. The CB never spoke again. In daylight, the whole thing felt smaller. The lot looked dirty, not threatening. The pumps looked normal. Drivers crossed the asphalt with shower bags and paper coffee cups. A man in a red hoodie walked a beagle near the grass and waved at me like it was any other morning. I almost convinced myself it was. At the yard, maintenance checked the CB wiring. They found nothing loose, no stuck transmit, no bad ground that they cared about. The mechanic listened to my story with one eye on his clipboard and said, "Radios do weird things." I said even off. He shrugged and said, "Especially when drivers are tired." I hated him for that, mostly because I wanted him to be right. For a few days I did not talk about it except with Mason. He called it my ghost radio, which I told him not to call it. I did not want that word anywhere near it. Ghosts are too easy. People can laugh at ghosts. This felt like someone with a map. A week later, I downloaded the dashcam files to my laptop because Dispatch wanted the originals attached to the equipment report. I listened to the clips again in my kitchen with the lights on and my boots still by the door. The voice was there. Left lane's cleaner. Wrong channel. Don't park by the pumps. Good spot. I was about to close the folder when I noticed the final clip had a few more seconds after I stopped listening in the cab. Just static at first. Then something so low I had missed it through the truck speakers. I turned the volume up. The voice came back one last time, softer than before, almost pleased. Good, he listened. I closed the laptop and sat there until the screen went dark on its own. I was running east on I-70 through Kansas when I started doing the thing I only do when I am more tired than I want to admit. I took a black Bic pen from the cup holder and tapped it twice against the steering wheel. Not hard, just enough to make a sound in the cab. Tap, tap. It was a habit from my first year driving. Coffee helped for a while. Cold air helped for a while. But sometimes around 2 or 3 in the morning, I needed something small and stupid to remind my hands they were still attached to me. I was not falling asleep. I want to be clear about that. I was tired, but not unsafe. The road was open, the truck was running clean, and the load was nothing special. Dry van, sealed trailer, general freight headed toward Kansas City. The pen went back above me, clipped to the edge of the visor. I remember that because I missed the clip the first time and had to reach up again. That is the kind of detail you remember later after people ask if you are sure. A few miles after that, the sign over the right lane lit up. Trucks must enter scale. I sighed, but I was not worried. I had scaled the load back in Colorado. The weights were legal, my logs were clean. The seal was intact. I had enough hours. A weigh station at night was annoying, not scary. I took the ramp and rolled into the scale lane with the window cracked and the cab heater blowing against my boots. There was one truck ahead of me. He cleared fast. Then the light turned green and I pulled onto the platform. The speaker outside the window popped once. A woman's voice said, "Hold there." I held. That was normal too. Sometimes they checked the paperwork. Sometimes the system lagged. Sometimes they just wanted a closer look at the truck number. The window in the scale house slid open. The clerk leaned toward her screen, then toward me. She was maybe in her 50s wearing a dark jacket over a gray hoodie. She did not look angry. She looked like someone whose shift had been too long. She said, "Did they send you back around?" I thought I had misheard her over the engine. I said, "No, ma'am. First time through tonight." She looked at the monitor again. Then she said my trailer number out loud, the correct one. I felt my face get hot before I felt scared. My first thought was not that something was wrong. My first thought was that some record had gotten mixed up, and I was about to lose 20 minutes proving I had not done anything. I told her again that I had not been through that scale. She did not argue. She just turned the monitor slightly, not enough for me to read everything, but enough for me to see a line highlighted on the screen. Same carrier, same tractor, same trailer. Then she said, "System shows you passed 26 minutes ago." I looked at the road behind me like there might be an answer sitting back there in the dark. There was nothing but the empty ramp and the lights over the scale. The clerk told me to pull forward into the side lane and bring in my paperwork. I did what she said, not because I was scared of her, because that is what you do at a scale house. You do not make a scene over a screen error at 3 in the morning. You park where they tell you grab the bills and try to get out without turning a small problem into a bigger one. Before I stepped down, I checked the visor. The black pen was still clipped there. I do not know why I looked. Maybe because my hands were already looking for normal things. Wallet, phone, bills, pen, door lock, all the little pieces that make you feel like the cab is still yours. Inside, the scale office smelled like burnt coffee and copier paper. There was a small heater under the counter and a wall clock that clicked too loud for the room. The clerk took my bills, compared the seal number, then looked back at her screen. She said, "This is the same trailer." I said, "It can't be. I came straight from Colorado. I haven't crossed this scale tonight." She did not answer right away. She printed something from the machine beside her desk, not a full page. a narrow yellow carbon copy slip. She tore it off and laid it on the counter. At the top was a black stamp, K117. Below that was my carrier name, my tractor number, my trailer number, the gross weight, lane 2, a timestamp from 26 minutes earlier. I stared at the numbers trying to make one of them wrong. None of the important ones were. The weight was close to what it should have been. Not exact, but close enough that it could have been my load. The seal number matched too. That bothered me more than the truck number. A truck number can be read off the side. A trailer number can be read from the door. But the seal number was on the paperwork and on the small metal seal through the latch. I took out my phone and photographed the ticket on the counter. The clerk watched me do it. She did not stop me. I opened my ELD next. The location history showed where I had been 26 minutes earlier. Still west, still moving, nowhere near the scale. I called dispatch while standing at the counter. A night dispatcher answered after 4 rings. I gave him the scale location, the timestamp, and the ticket number. He sounded half asleep until he pulled up the truck location. Then he got quiet. He said, "Your ping doesn't show you there." I said, "I know." He asked the clerk if the ticket could be a duplicate print. She said maybe. Her tone said she wanted it to be that. I wanted it too. She printed me a corrected copy showing the current time, then stapled it to the yellow slip, like that fixed something. I asked if I was clear to leave. She looked at the screen again. "There's an observation note attached to the first pass," she said. I thought she meant a note about weight or lane assignment or maybe a camera read. The dispatcher was still on the phone when I asked her what kind of observation note. She moved, the mouse waited and frowned at the screen. Then she said driver behavior. The clerk clicked the note open. I could see her face change before she read it. Not fear, more like confusion. The kind people get when a normal form has something in it that does not belong there. She read the first line to herself. Then she looked at me through the glass partition. The dispatcher on my phone asked what was going on. I put him on speaker and set the phone on the counter. The clerk said, "It says driver appeared fatigued." I almost laughed because that was the one part that sounded normal. I had been driving through Kansas in the middle of the night. Most drivers at that hour looked tired. That did not prove anything. Then she kept reading. Black pen visible in left hand before scale entry. The room got very quiet after that. I looked toward the door like I could see through the wall and into my cab. I could not, of course. The truck was parked outside under the white light's engine, still idling trailer sitting straight behind it. The black Bic pen was clipped to my visor. I had put it there myself before I entered the scale. I said, "What does that mean?" The clerk said it was just an observation note. Sometimes officers entered notes if a driver looked tired, distracted, or unsafe. Sometimes camera reads got attached. Sometimes plate recognition added a note automatically. She was talking faster now. The dispatcher asked her what time the note was entered. She checked. Same time as the first pass, 26 minutes earlier. I told both of them I had used a black pen before I reached the scale. I heard how that sounded as soon as I said it, like I was helping the story become stranger. The dispatcher asked, "Used it how?" I looked at the counter. I did not want to answer. It felt too small, too stupid. I told him I tapped it on the steering wheel. The clerk looked back at the screen. She scrolled a little. Then she stopped. I saw her swallow before she said the next part. It says driver tapped black pen twice before scale entry. I did not move for a while. There are moments when fear does not come in like panic. It comes in like math. You start removing explanations one at a time, and the room gets colder with every one you lose. The ticket could have been duplicate. The truck number could have been misread. The trailer number could have come from a camera. The seal number could have been pulled from some system I did not understand. But the pen was inside my cab. The tapping happened before the ramp. Nobody at that scale house should have seen it. I asked if there was video. The clerk shook her head first, then checked anyway. She opened a camera tab and typed the ticket number. K117 appeared in the search box. There was a clip attached to the first pass. For a second, that almost made me feel better. Video would prove it was not me. Video would show some other truck, some other driver, some simple mistake everyone could point at. The clerk clicked it. A gray box opened. No image loaded. She tried again. Same thing. The dispatcher asked if the file was corrupted. The clerk said it has the plate read, it has the weight, it has the note, but the video file is blank. I took another photo, then another. Ticket, note, timestamp, the blank video window, my ELD location on my phone. My hands were shaking enough that the first picture blurred. The clerk noticed. She softened a little and said she could clear me on the current pass. She could print the corrected ticket. Anything past that would have to go through the system in the morning. That was when I understood something I did not like. To her, this was already becoming paperwork. To dispatch, it was becoming an incident note. To me, it was still happening. I asked her one more question before I left. I asked if the observation notes ever pulled from inside cab cameras. She looked at the front of my truck through the window, then back at me. Not ours, she said. She cleared me on the current pass. That is the part that made it feel unreal. Not the note, not even the blank video file. It was the way the system could say I had already been there, describe something I did inside the cab, fail to show video, and still let me leave with a corrected ticket, like this was a normal clerical problem. The clerk printed the new copy and handed it over with the yellow K117 slip stapled behind it. She told me to keep both. I asked her if she could write down that the first pass was disputed. She did not like that word disputed, but she typed something into the notes anyway. I watched her do it. Then I asked if I could take a picture of the screen showing the correction. She hesitated. The dispatcher, still on speaker, said the company needed documentation for compliance. That helped. She turned the monitor just enough for me to photograph the correction line, not the whole system. I thanked her because I did not know what else to say. Outside, the cold hit harder than before. The scale lights made everything look flat and pale. My truck sat in the side lane exactly where I had left it. Engine idling, trailer doors closed, seals still hanging through the latch. I walked the trailer before I got back in. Not because anyone told me to, because I needed one part of the night to make sense. The seal number matched the bills. The latch had no fresh marks. The tires looked fine. No door was open. No one was standing near the back. The paperwork sleeve was empty the way it had been when I left the shipper. I took pictures anyway. When I climbed into the cab, I locked the door before I sat down. Then I looked at the visor. The black Bic pen was still there. For some reason, seeing it did not calm me down. I reached up and touched it once. I did not take it down. I just pressed my finger against the plastic clip to make sure it was real. Then I put the tickets into my folder and slid the folder into the overhead compartment above the passenger seat. I remember closing the latch. I remember pushing it twice because the first click did not sound right. Dispatch told me to continue if I felt safe enough to drive. If anything else happened, I was supposed to stop at a staffed location and call back. Safety would review the scale documents in the morning. That was reasonable. That was also useless. I could not stay parked at a scale house all night, waiting for someone to explain a blank video file. There was no direct threat. The clerk had nothing else. The load still had an appointment. And every minute I sat there, I felt more like the kind of driver people start talking about after he holds up a line over something nobody else can see. So I pulled back onto I-70. The road looked the same as before. Dark fields, white lane lines, wind pushing at the cab in slow waves. No headlights stayed behind me for long. No one called on the CB. No new alert came through the tablet. For 10 minutes, I almost felt stupid. Then I looked at the visor again. The pen was still there. I said it out loud very quietly. I'm not crazy. I did not say it because I believed it. I said it because I needed to hear what it sounded like in my own voice. The rest of the drive toward Kansas City was ordinary. That made it worse in a different way. I wanted something clear to happen, something I could report without sounding tired. A truck following too close, a person at the next stop, a new message on the tablet. Nothing did. Only the folder above the passenger seat kept making a soft tick against the latch whenever the road got rough. Every time it did, I looked at the visor, and every time the pen was still clipped there. I reached the receiver a little after sunrise. By then, the night had started to feel like something that belonged to another version of me. That happens after a bad drive. Daylight comes in, coffee tastes normal again, and the things that seemed impossible at 3 in the morning start trying to shrink themselves into mistakes. The guard at the shack checked my appointment number and waved me through. Nothing was wrong with the seal. Nothing was wrong with the trailer. I backed into door 14 on the first try, which almost made me feel human again. A yard dog moved 2 trailers across the lot. Someone in a safety vest smoked near the employee entrance. The building smelled like cardboard diesel and wet concrete. Normal things. I sat in the cab while they broke the seal and started unloading. I sent dispatch one more message saying I had arrived and would scan the scale paperwork after delivery. The reply came back simple. Copy. Safety will review. I wanted that to be enough. When the receiver came out for the bills, I opened the overhead compartment above the passenger seat and took down the folder. The latch clicked. The same soft click I had heard all night on the rough patches of I-70. I laid the folder on the passenger seat. The yellow K117 slip was still stapled behind the corrected copy. For 1 second I felt relief. Then I saw the pen. The black bic was clipped across the top of the yellow ticket, pressed sideways against the paper, like someone had used it as a bookmark. Right over the observation note, driver tapped black pen twice before scale entry. I did not pick it up at first. I just stared at it. Then I looked at the visor. Empty. There is a strange kind of fear that does not make you move fast. It makes every movement feel too important. I checked the visor again, slower this time, like the pen might reappear if I gave it another chance. It did not. The receiver was waiting outside my open window with his clipboard. He asked if everything was all right. I told him yes because I could not think of a version of the truth that belonged in a loading dock at 7 in the morning. I took photos before I touched anything. Folder on seat, pen across ticket, empty visor, corrected copy, yellow K117 slip, observation note, door 14 visible through the windshield, time on the dash. Then I moved the pen. I hated touching it. It was just a cheap black pen, scratched cap, chewed end. The same one I had been using for weeks. It felt warm from the cab, not cold, not wet, not different in any way. That made it worse. I called dispatch and asked for safety directly. The safety manager called back while the receiver was still unloading. I explained it as carefully as I could. I did not say somebody moved it. I said the pen was no longer where I had last seen it, and it was now clipped to the scale document that mentioned it. He asked the question I knew was coming. Could you have moved it yourself? I wanted to say no immediately. Instead, I looked at the folder. I looked at the visor. I looked at the receiving clerk walking away with my bills, like none of this had anything to do with him. I said I don't see how. That was not the same as no, and I hated that too. The company closed the load that afternoon. Safety marked the scale issue for review. A week later, the explanation came back in pieces. Possible duplicate scale entry, possible driver fatigue, possible documentation mismatch, no corrective action. No corrective action sounds like good news. It did not feel like good news. It felt like they had decided the easiest version was the official version. I kept the yellow K117 copy in an envelope at home for a while. Not because of the weight, not because of the timestamp, not even because of the blank video file. Because of the pen mark. There was a faint black line across the words where the clip had pressed the ink into the paper. Right under the sentence about the driver tapping it twice. I can explain a bad scale record. I can explain a duplicate ticket. I still cannot explain how the pen ended up clipped to the line that mentioned it. I was down to 38 minutes on my clock when I started looking for a place to sleep. That does not sound like an emergency if you do not drive for a living. It is. Not the kind with sirens, but the kind that makes every sign matter. Every exit, every shoulder, every truck stop listing that says full when you still need somewhere legal to park. I was on I-81 in Virginia, running north through light rain. The mountains were black on both sides of the highway, and the spray from passing trucks kept flashing white in my headlights. I had enough fuel. The truck was fine. Dispatch had already told me to shut down whenever I found parking. That should have made the night simple. It did not. The first truck stop I checked was full. The second one showed 2 reserved spaces left on the app. Then one, then none, before I could even tap the screen. I said something ugly to myself and kept driving. A larger stop came up 12 miles ahead. I had stayed there before. Not my favorite place, but it had a staffed desk cameras, a restaurant that never really closed, and enough reserved parking that I had a chance. I opened the app at the next straight stretch and searched the location. Most of the lot was full. That was normal for that hour. One reserved spot showed unavailable, but not because someone had booked it ahead of me. It showed checked in. B12, unit 4821. I stared at the number long enough that the lane line started pulling under my left tire. Unit 4821 was my truck. I looked back at the road and corrected gently. Then I glanced at the app again, hoping I had misread it. B12 still showed occupied. Checked in unit 4821. I had not booked anything. I had not pulled into the lot. I was still 12 miles away, rolling through rain with the wipers ticking slow across the windshield. For a few seconds, I just got irritated. Apps glitch. Truck stop systems glitch. Sometimes drivers enter the wrong unit number because they are tired or rushing at the counter. I had seen worse mistakes on fuel receipts and parking reservations. I told myself that was all this was. Then the app refreshed. A second line appeared under the reservation. Driver already on property. I checked my mirrors, then the GPS, then the mile marker sign sliding past on the right. I was not on their property. I was not even at their exit. My clock showed 34 minutes left. That was the pressure. I could not just keep driving until the world made sense again. I needed a legal place to shut down, and the nearest legal place was the one already claiming I was there. I called the truck stop from the road. The number was inside the app, buried under reservation details and store information. It rang 5 times before someone picked up. A woman answered like she had already answered too many parking calls that night. I gave her the location and said the app showed my unit checked into B12. She asked for the truck number. I told her. There was a pause. Then she said, "Yeah, I show you checked in." I kept my voice calm because I needed help, not an argument. I told her I was still on I-81 and had not reached the exit yet. She asked, "Are you sure you're at the right location?" I looked at the GPS. Same exit, same truck stop. 12 miles had become 8. I said yes. She told me the system sometimes lagged or pulled old reservations forward. She did not sound convinced, but she did not sound suspicious either. She sounded like a person at a busy desk who wanted a screen to stop being wrong. I asked if she could release the spot. She said not while it showed occupied. That word sat wrong with me. Occupied. My clock showed 27 minutes. I could have kept driving to the next place, but the next place was small and usually packed. If I ran out of hours searching for a spot, that would be my problem. Not the apps, not dispatches, mine. So I kept going. When I took the exit, the truck stop looked normal at first. Wet pavement, diesel canopy lights, a line at the pumps, drivers walking fast with hoods up against the rain. The kind of place that feels ugly and safe at the same time, because there are too many witnesses for anything strange to happen. I rolled through the entrance and followed the signs toward reserved parking. B12 was on the far side of the lot, 2 rows back from the fuel island. It was empty. No truck, no cone, no bobtail parked crooked across the line. Just a wet rectangle of asphalt with the number painted at the curb. I did not pull into it. I slowed enough to look, then kept moving like I was searching for another space. That was not courage. That was me not wanting to put my truck exactly where the app already thought it was. As I passed, my headlights caught something pale on the ground near the front of the spot. A receipt. It was soaked and flattened against the pavement, one corner moving in the rainwater. A tire had crossed part of it, leaving a dirty arc through the paper. I did not get out. I found an open spot near the building C3 under a light, with a camera dome mounted above the side entrance. It was not reserved. It was legal. I parked there, set the brakes, and took a photo of the spot number through the windshield. Then I locked the doors. The app still showed B12 occupied by Unit 4821. I zoomed in with my phone camera toward the paper on the ground across the lot. The image was shaky and blurred by rain, but one line came through clearly enough. Unit 4821. My truck number was printed on the receipt in B12. I stayed in the cab for a minute with the doors locked and the engine idling. The rain made the lot look softer than it was. Headlights smeared across the windshield. Drivers moved between trucks with their hoods up and shoulders hunched. Nobody looked like they were watching me, which almost made the whole thing feel stupid again. Almost. I called dispatch first. I sent a screenshot of the app, a photo of my spot number, and the zoom picture of the receipt in B12. The dispatcher told me to document it with the truck stop desk before I went off duty, or the company might get stuck paying for the wrong reservation. That was the part that made me leave the cab. Not curiosity, not bravery. A parking charge can turn into a company message, and company messages turn into questions later. I had already learned that if a record is wrong, you fix it while it is still fresh. I locked the truck, kept my keys in my hand, and walked straight to the building. I did not go near B12. Inside, the desk clerk recognized my voice from the phone. She called the manager from the back office. He came out holding a tablet and wearing one of those tired smiles people use when they think the customer is about to be a problem. I told him I was not trying to get a free spot. I showed him the app, then the photo of C3, then the receipt on the ground in B12. He checked his system. B12 checked in at 1:14, he said. I looked at the clock behind him. It was 1:22. I told him I had parked in C3, not B12. He tapped the screen a few times and turned the tablet toward me. There was a camera snapshot attached to the reservation. It was grainy, taken from high above the reserved row. Rain streaked across the image. The truck was angled slightly nose in, sitting in B12. White tractor, same company number on the side. Same cracked bug deflector over the hood. Same small strip of red reflective tape on the front bumper where I had patched it 2 months earlier after a yard scrape in Ohio. For a few seconds, I could not find the sentence I needed. The manager said, "Looks like your unit." Not accusing, just stating the obvious. I told him to zoom in on the timestamp, 1:14 a.m. At 1:14, I had just parked in C3. I knew because I had taken the photo through the windshield right after setting the brakes. The photo on my phone had the time on it. My dash cam would have the same thing. I showed him. He looked at my photo. Then he looked back at his tablet. The desk clerk leaned over and said maybe I had moved after checking in. I told her I had not. The manager tried to remove the B12 check-in, but the system would not let him clear it while the camera image was attached. He said he could make a note. That was all. A note. I was starting to hate that word. I called dispatch from inside the store and put the manager on speaker. The manager said the image matched my truck and the reservation was active. Dispatch asked if he could mark it disputed. He said yes. That should have been enough. But while he was typing, the clerk frowned at her screen. She said, "That's odd." The manager asked what. She said B12 had just updated from occupied to vacant. I looked through the front glass toward the lot. B12 was still empty. My truck was still in C3, and the wet receipt was still lying on the pavement where my headlights had first caught it. I went back to the truck after the manager marked the reservation disputed. I did not walk across the lot to look at B12. I did not pick up the wet receipt. I did not want my footprints anywhere near that space, and I did not want anyone later saying I had placed something there myself. C3 was still where I had left it. My truck was still under the side camera engine idling wipers moving slow across the glass. The trucks on both sides of me were quiet. Curtains closed, marker lights glowing red in the rain. I climbed in, locked both doors, and sent dispatch one more photo from the driver's seat. C3 painted on the curb, dash clock visible, truck stop building in front of me. Then I started my break. I did not sleep much, maybe 20 minutes at a time. Every time a truck passed close, I opened my eyes and looked toward the reserved row. B12 stayed empty as far as I could tell. No one came to my door, no one tapped the glass, no shadow stood between the trucks. That should have made me feel better. Instead, it made the record feel more permanent than the night itself. Nothing was happening outside, but in the system something had already happened. My truck had been in B12. My unit had checked in. My image had been attached. My dispute was just a note under it. By morning, the rain had stopped. The lot looked harmless in gray daylight. Drivers were doing pre-trips. Someone was brushing his teeth beside a reefer trailer. A woman in a blue hoodie was walking a little brown dog near the grass behind the building. I told myself it was over. The parking issue would go to billing. Dispatch would argue with the truck stop. I would move on to the next load and forget the name of the exit in a month. Then I stepped down from the cab and saw the yellow envelope under my wiper. It was folded once and tucked tight beneath the blade. Parking violation notice, unauthorized overstay reserved spot, B12. I stood there with one boot on the step and one on the asphalt reading that line until the words stopped looking like words. I had been in C3 all night. I opened the envelope. Inside was a printed camera snapshot. Same angle as the manager's tablet. Same rain-streaked image. Same white tractor sitting nose in at B12. Timestamp 1:14 a.m. I got back into the cab and pulled up my dash cam. The clip from 1:14 showed my truck already parked in C3. The view did not move. The building entrance was centered through the windshield. A man in a reflective jacket walked past the front of the truck and glanced up at my cab. The same camera dome was visible above the door. I played it twice. Then I played the truck stop snapshot against it, holding the paper beside the dash cam screen. Both records had the same minute. Both showed my truck in two different spots. I sent everything to dispatch. The violation, the snapshot, the dash cam clip, the photo I had taken from C3 when I parked. Dispatch replied after a few minutes. "Keep both records. We'll dispute it." That was the official ending. A week later, the parking fee still settled against the company card. Nobody yelled at me for it. Nobody wrote me up. The note in the company portal just said, "Driver parked outside assigned reservation." I could have fought it harder. Maybe I should have. But after a while, you get tired of proving where you were to people who already have a cleaner version in front of them. The part I keep thinking about is not the fee. It is that their camera saw my truck sleeping in a spot I never parked in. The first picture I took that night was normal. That is what bothers me about it now. I was in a drop yard outside Indianapolis, hooked to a dry van that had been sitting in row D since late afternoon. The yard was mostly gravel with puddles in the low spots and sodium lights buzzing over the fence. Nothing about it felt private. Cameras on the gate, a guard in a small booth. other drivers moving in and out with flashlights between their teeth. I backed under the trailer, locked the fifth wheel, tug-tested it twice, and walked the line like I always do. Lights, tires, landing gear, door latch, seal. The seal was silver numbered and tight through the hasp. I took a picture for dispatch. That was company routine. Seal photo before departure, trailer number, door closed, no damage. I had done it so many times I could frame the shot without thinking. The photo uploaded from the tablet before I even got back to the cab. Dispatch replied with a thumbs up and the route south toward Louisville. I pulled out of the yard at 11:42 p.m., passed the guard booth, and merged onto the highway with a sealed trailer and a clean clock. For about 40 minutes, nothing happened. That almost sounds like wasted time in a story, but it matters. I did not stop. I did not pull into a truck stop. I did not open the trailer doors. I did not let anyone near the back of that trailer after leaving the yard. I was on I-65 South when dispatch messaged again. Customer wants a clearer seal photo. First one is blurry on their end. I said something under my breath, but I was not worried, annoyed mostly. The original photo had looked fine to me, but customers get particular about seals. If the number is hard to read, they ask for another picture. That part was normal. I did not pull onto the shoulder. I waited for the next rest area because there were lights and a few trucks parked there. I took the ramp slow, found a space near the building, and parked with the trailer doors facing the main walkway. Then I sat for a second. I do that sometimes before getting out at night. Look at the mirrors. Look at who is walking. Make sure the lot feels normal. It did. 2 trucks idled across from me. A man in sweatpants was carrying a shower bag toward the building. A woman was walking a dog near the grass. No one was standing near my trailer. I grabbed my phone, stepped down, locked the cab, and walked back along the driver's side. The seal was still there. So was something else. A white envelope was tucked flat under the horizontal locking bar on the right trailer door, held tight enough that the wind had not moved it. For a second I thought it was old paperwork from the yard, a lumper receipt, a missed note, something another driver had left in the wrong place. Then I saw the writing on the front, for Unit 4821, after seal photo. Unit 4821 was my truck, and dispatch had only asked for the second seal photo less than 5 minutes earlier. I did not touch the envelope right away. That was not because I was calm. It was because my first thought was stupidly practical. If I pulled it loose and someone later asked where I found it, I wanted proof. Trucking teaches you to photograph things before you move them. Damage, seals, pallets, parking spots, anything that can turn into your problem later. So, I stood behind the trailer in the rest area lights and took pictures. Wide shot first, trailer doors, seal, envelope under the locking bar. Then closer, Unit 4821 written across the front in block letters. Then closer again where the second line was clear. After seal photo. The wording was what made my hands feel wrong. It did not say after delivery, it did not say after pickup, it did not say driver. It said after seal photo, like whoever put it there knew the exact small task that had brought me out of the cab. I looked around the rest area. No one was near me. The man with the shower bag was gone. The woman with the dog was near the vending machines now. A pickup sat under a light with nobody inside. A flatbed driver 2 rows over was tightening a strap, not looking my way. I called dispatch before I opened it. The dispatcher who answered was the same one who had asked for the second seal photo. I told her there was an envelope on the trailer door addressed to my unit and that it referenced the seal photo she had just requested. She went quiet. Then she said, "I only sent that request to you." I said, "I know." She asked if the seal was intact. I told her yes. She told me to take another picture of it before touching the envelope. I had already done that. That made me feel a little better. Not safe, just less alone in the decision. She told me not to open the trailer doors. She told me not to leave the rest area if I felt unsafe. Then she asked if I wanted to wait for another driver or call the state police. I looked across the lot again. Nothing was happening. No one was approaching me. No one had threatened me. The envelope was strange, but it was not a weapon. Calling police over a white envelope on a sealed trailer at midnight felt like something I would have to explain for the rest of the week. I told her I was going to remove it, bring it into the cab, and open it with the doors locked. She did not like that, but she understood. The envelope came loose too easily. It had not been wedged hard, just placed flat beneath the bar, clean and dry, protected from the mist by the lip of the trailer door. That was the next wrong thing. The rest area pavement was wet. The back of the trailer was wet. Even my sleeves were damp from standing outside. But the envelope felt dry. I took it to the cab, locked both doors, and set it on the passenger seat. For a few seconds, I just looked at it. The handwriting was not fancy, not shaky. Big block letters, probably black marker. No stamp, no return address, no company logo. I opened it with my pocket knife along the top edge. Inside was one photo. Not a printed document, not a note. A photo on cheap glossy paper slightly curled at the corners. It showed me standing behind the trailer back in the Indianapolis yard. My hood was up. My left hand was holding the tablet. My right hand was pointing the phone toward the seal. The silver seal was visible between the latch bars. The photo had been taken from behind me and slightly to the left. Close enough to see the crooked temporary yard pass on my windshield. Close enough to see the screen glow on my hand. I had never seen anyone standing there. Dispatch was still on the phone when I told her what it was. She asked me to send a picture of the photo. I did. For almost a minute, neither of us said anything. Then she said very quietly, "That wasn't attached to the load when you left." I looked out through the windshield at the rest area lights and the parked trucks. I said it was attached to something. Dispatch asked me to stay where I was while she got safety on the line. I did not like that. Rest areas are better than shoulders, but they are not safe in the way people think they are. They are open, dark around the edges, full of drivers half asleep and strangers who can disappear between trailers without anyone noticing. Still, I did not move right away. I took more pictures from inside the cab. The envelope on the seat, the photo inside it, the trailer doors in my mirror, the time on the dash, the rest area sign through the windshield. I wanted every piece tied to one place, 1 minute, one version of the night. Safety called 5 minutes later. He asked the same questions twice. Was the seal intact? Was the trailer door damaged? Was anyone near the truck? Did the envelope contain a threat? Did the photo show the load? Did it show me clearly? I answered as cleanly as I could. Seal intact, no door damage, no one visible near the truck, no written threat, no load visible. Yes, it showed me. Then he asked if I recognized who took the picture. That question bothered me more than it should have. I looked at the photo again. The angle was low from behind the left rear corner of the trailer beside mine in the yard. Whoever took it had not been far away. Maybe 20 feet, maybe less. I zoomed in on the photo with my phone camera and saw a detail I had missed. My tablet screen was visible, not readable, just bright enough to show the seal photo frame. The person who took that picture had caught me at the exact second I was taking the company photo. Not before, not after. Right then, safety told me not to open the trailer, not to break the seal, and not to leave the envelope behind. He wanted me to proceed to a staffed truck stop 20 miles South Park, under lights, and wait for dispatch to document everything in the load notes. That was the first instruction all night that made sense. I did one more walk around before leaving, but I kept it short. I did not look under the trailer. I did not search between parked trucks. I checked the seal, checked the lock bar, checked both doors, then got back in. As I climbed into the cab, a thought hit me hard enough that I stopped with one boot on the step. If the person had taken the photo in the Indianapolis yard, then the envelope could have been placed there before I left. But the writing on it said after seal photo. That meant either someone knew dispatch would ask for another one, or someone knew I would have to look at the seal again for some reason. I shut the door and locked it. The rest area looked the same when I pulled out. Nobody ran after me, nobody flashed lights, nobody followed close enough to make a report out of it. That almost disappointed me. A clear threat would have been easier. A person, a vehicle, a plate number, something I could point to. Instead, I had a dry envelope, a photo of myself, and a sentence that knew my next step before I did. The truck stop 20 miles south was busy. I parked near the front row facing the store with the trailer doors angled toward the fuel island cameras. Dispatch stayed on the phone until I set the brakes. Safety wanted the original photo and envelope kept in the cab. He told me to write the time and location on a blank sheet and put everything together in a plastic sleeve if I had one. I did. While I was sliding the photo back into the envelope, I noticed something on the back. There was a small printed time in the lower right corner, like it had come from one of those cheap instant photo printers. 11:39 p.m. I had pulled out of the Indianapolis yard at 11:42. I checked my own seal photo upload. Timestamp 11:38 p.m. For a moment, I thought that explained it. Someone took the picture, printed it, wrote the envelope, and placed it on the trailer before I left the yard. That was possible, barely. Then I looked at the front again. For Unit 4821 after seal photo, the marker ink had bled slightly into the paper, but not from rain, from pressure, like someone had written it while the envelope was already pressed against something hard, like a trailer door. I stayed at that truck stop for almost 30 minutes without shutting the engine off. Safety wanted me under lights. Dispatch wanted the load moving. I wanted someone to give me a simple instruction that made all of it feel normal again. Nobody did. The store manager let me stand near the counter while he checked the outside cameras. He was not excited about it. He had the tired patience of a man who had heard too many driver problems between midnight and breakfast. I showed him the envelope, then the photo, then the back of it with the printed time. He looked at the picture longer than I expected. Then he said, "That's you." I said yes. He looked out through the front glass toward my truck. "Somebody printed that fast," he said. That was all. Not a theory, not a warning, just one ordinary sentence that made the whole thing worse. The cameras showed me pulling in. They showed me parking. They showed me walking once around the trailer. They showed nobody touching the doors after I arrived. That helped safety write the report, but it did not answer the question that mattered. The envelope was already with me before I got there. Dispatch asked if I could keep going to Louisville. The seal was intact. The trailer had not been opened. The customer still wanted the load. I had enough hours. The safest thing, according to everyone on the phone, was to keep the freight moving and stop only at staffed places. That made sense. I hated that it made sense. Before I left, I took one more picture of the back of the trailer. Seal, door bars, the empty spot where the envelope had been. I zoomed in on the metal around the locking bar. There was no tape residue, no string, no magnet, nothing that explained how the envelope stayed flat for 40 minutes on the highway without tearing loose. Safety told me to put the envelope in a plastic document sleeve and keep it in the cab until delivery. I did not have a plastic sleeve, so I used a clear bag from a pack of shop towels and folded the top under itself. That little homemade evidence bag made me feel ridiculous. It also made me feel a little safer. I pulled out of the truck stop and got back on I-65. The next hour was quiet. Too quiet in the way a good road can be quiet. No messages, no cars pacing me. No one on the CB talking about my truck. Just wet pavement engine hum and the plastic bag on the passenger seat moving slightly whenever the cab bounced. I kept glancing at it. The photo inside had curled more from the cab heat. My own shape in the picture looked wrong to me now. Not because it was distorted, because it was too ordinary. Just a driver standing behind a trailer doing the most routine thing in the job. Someone had watched that exact routine closely enough to build the rest of the night around it. About 40 miles from Louisville, dispatch called again. She said the customer had accepted the second seal photo I sent from the rest area. I asked which one. She said the clearer one, the photo of the seal with the envelope visible under the lock bar. I told her I had not sent that as the seal photo. There was a pause. I had sent photos to dispatch, yes. Evidence photos, wide shot, close shot, envelope, seal. But I had not submitted any of them through the customer photo link. I had only sent them in the dispatch thread. She checked again. Then she said, "It's showing as customer upload." I asked from whose device. She did not answer right away. I knew before she said it. My driver tablet. I looked at the tablet mounted to the dash. It was on the root screen. It had been there since I left the rest area. I had not touched the customer upload link. The screen had not even been unlocked since the truck stop. Dispatch said maybe the system pulled the attachment automatically. Maybe. That word had started to feel like a towel thrown over a stain. I told her to mark that I disputed the upload source. She said she would. A few minutes later, I opened my original seal photo from the Indianapolis yard. The one from 1138. The normal one. The one I had taken before any of this started. I zoomed in toward the right trailer door. At first, I saw only the seal, the latch, the brushed metal, and the shadow under the locking bar. Then I saw a small white corner, barely visible, tucked under the bar, right where the envelope had been waiting later. I pulled over at the next lit scale-safe turnout and looked again. The corner was there, but there was no writing on it. I stayed in that turnout longer than I should have. Not long enough to break my clock, just long enough to make sure I was not seeing a reflection or a glare from the trailer metal in the old picture. I zoomed in until the image started to break into little squares. The white corner was still there. No writing, no black marker, just the edge of something flat tucked under the locking bar beside the seal. I sent the zoomed image to dispatch. Then I sent the full original photo. Then I sent both again to safety because I did not want anyone later saying I had cropped the picture wrong or mixed up the file. The original upload time was still there. 11:38 p.m. Indianapolis yard, before I left. Before the second seal photo request, before the rest area, before the envelope had words on it. Safety called me back while I was still parked. He asked if I was sure it was the same envelope. That was the right question. It was also the useless one. I could not be sure, not in the way a company wants you to be sure. The corner in the photo could have been a scrap of old paper. It could have been a shipping label. It could have been anything thin and white caught under the bar. But I had held the envelope in my hand. I knew its size. I knew where it had been tucked. And I knew there had been no writing visible in the first photo. Safety told me to continue to the receiver and not open the trailer unless instructed. He said they would preserve the photo chain. He said those exact words. Preserve the photo chain. Like we were building a case around a white envelope and not trying to understand why it had followed me down the interstate. I drove the rest of the way to Louisville with the tablet screen dark. The receiver was open by the time I arrived. The guard checked the appointment, wrote my trailer number on a clipboard, and sent me to door 6. Nothing strange happened at the gate. Nobody was waiting by the dock. Nobody asked about the envelope. Nobody seemed to know anything about the seal photo, except that the customer had approved it. The load came off clean, seal matched, product counted, no shortage, no damage. That should have helped. It did not. A clean delivery made the envelope feel less like a threat and more like a message. Whoever put it there had not wanted the freight. They had not wanted me to break the seal. They had not tried to stop the load. They wanted me to see that they knew what I would do. After the bills were signed, I parked along the fence and opened the company photo thread from the beginning. I went through every image. The first seal photo from the yard, the envelope photos from the rest area, the photo inside the envelope. The second seal photo that dispatch said the customer had accepted. That last one still bothered me most. It was framed too clean. The seal was centered. The envelope was visible under the bar. The words could be read, but not too clearly. For Unit 4821 after seal photo, it looked like something I would have taken if I had been trying to document it for a customer. But I had not taken it that way. I had taken evidence photos, messy ones, angled ones, photos with my thumb in the corner and rain spots on the lens. The customer upload looked steadier than mine. Safety said it might have been pulled from one of my images and processed by the system. Maybe. By then I had heard maybe too many times. The report closed 2 weeks later. No cargo issue, no seal issue, no driver violation. The envelope was listed as unidentified paperwork found on trailer exterior. The photo inside it was listed as unauthorized yard image. That sounded serious enough until I saw the final note. Driver retained item. Not unknown party placed item. Not possible yard surveillance issue. Driver retained item. The record made it sound like I had chosen to keep something that belonged to the load instead of something finding me on the side of it. I still have the envelope. Not at home. I could not keep it there. I just keep it folded in the pocket of an old logbook binder I do not use anymore in a box with expired permits and spare glad hand seals. I know that makes no sense. I know I should have thrown it away. But sometimes I take it out and look at the front. The marker is faded now. The words are still there. For Unit 4821 after seal photo, the part I cannot stop thinking about is the first picture from the yard. The envelope was already under the locking bar, but the words were not there yet. The first alert came in while I was still sure nothing was wrong. I was running west on I-10 through New Mexico, somewhere between the kind of exits that look closed even when they are open. Desert on both sides, black sky, a few reflectors blinking past in the headlights, the kind of road where the truck feels like the only moving thing for miles. My company had put driver-facing cameras in every cab the year before. Nobody liked them. We all learned to live with them. They caught hard brakes, lane drift, phone use, following distance, all the things safety departments care about after something has already gone wrong. I did not love the camera, but I understood why it was there. That night, it was just another little black box above the windshield. Green light on. Lens pointed at me. Road-facing lens pointed ahead. Nothing unusual. The load was easy. Dry van, light freight, no hazmat, no special appointment pressure. My ELD was clean, my fuel was fine, and dispatch had not bothered me in hours. Then the tablet chimed. Not loud, just a short safety tone. Driver distraction event. I glanced at the screen long enough to read the label. Right shoulder check. That annoyed me more than it scared me. These systems overflag everything. You look at a mirror too long and it thinks you are distracted. You scratch your face and it thinks you are using a phone. I figured it had caught a mirror glance and named it wrong. I touched nothing. I kept both hands on the wheel and looked straight ahead. A few seconds later, something flashed at the edge of the right shoulder. Small, pale, maybe a reflector, maybe a piece of torn plastic caught on a post. I looked over before I thought about it. Just a quick check. The shoulder was empty. I looked back at the lane, and then the alert in my head caught up with what my body had just done. Right shoulder check. The tablet had logged it before I made it. I told myself the timestamp was probably delayed. Safety clips buffer. Alerts come through late. The system might have seen the mirror glance earlier and sent the notification after. That was boring. Boring was good. Still, I reached over at the next straight stretch and tapped the event details. The clip was already processing. The timestamp showed the alert started 6 seconds before I looked right. 6 seconds is not much unless you are alone in a cab at midnight with a camera pointed at your face. I did not call anyone yet. That matters. I was not scared enough to call. I was irritated, a little embarrassed, like the truck had caught me doing something before I knew I had done it. I kept driving. The green light on the camera stayed steady above the windshield. For the next few miles, I made myself look only at the road, the mirrors, and the gauges. Normal things. Driver things. Nothing the system could turn into a story. Then the tablet chimed again. The second alert was worse because it sounded reasonable. Driver slowing for pedestrian. I read it twice before my brain accepted the words. There was no pedestrian. I was on an interstate in the middle of desert country after midnight. No sidewalk, no exit ramp close enough for somebody to wander from. No broken down car on the shoulder. Just lane lines, reflectors, and that long, empty darkness you get in New Mexico when the headlights only show the next few seconds of the world. I checked the mirrors. Nothing. I checked the shoulder. Nothing. Then I realized my foot had come off the throttle. Not much. Not enough to call it braking, but enough that the truck had started to lose a little speed. I did not remember deciding to do that. That scared me more than the alert. I put my foot back steady and kept moving. The truck settled at speed again. The camera light stayed green. The tablet showed the event uploading with the little spinning circle beside it. I waited until I reached a straight empty stretch, then hit the hands-free and called the safety line. A man named Drew answered. I had never talked to him before. He sounded awake, which I appreciated. I gave him my truck number and told him the camera had generated 2 strange events in the last 10 minutes. He pulled up the feed. I could hear him clicking around. Then he said the right shoulder check might have been a buffered notification. He said sometimes the system detects eye movement and sends the alert a few seconds later depending on signal. That was close to what I had already told myself. I asked him about the pedestrian. He paused longer on that one. Then he said it may have classified shoulder movement as pedestrian risk. I asked what shoulder movement. He said the road-facing clip had not fully uploaded yet. The driver-facing clip had. I almost told him not to watch it. I do not know why. Maybe because the idea of someone sitting in an office watching my face in that cab made the whole thing feel smaller and more embarrassing. Like, I was not scared, just tired and being reviewed. Drew watched the clip. He said, "You do slow down." I said I knew that. He said, "You look right too." I told him there was nothing there. He did not argue. That was almost worse. He just said fatigue can create micro-reactions. Your body notices shapes before your mind does. Your foot can lift before you consciously identify why. That sounded like science. It also sounded like a polite way of saying, maybe the camera knew me better than I did. He told me to stop at the next safe location if I felt impaired. I said I did not feel impaired. I felt watched. I did not say that last part out loud. The road-facing clip finished uploading while we were still on the call. Drew opened it. I heard him breathe through his nose once. I asked what he saw. He said road looks clear. No person, no animal, no disabled vehicle, no debris big enough to matter. Just my truck slowing for something that was not there. A minute later, the system emailed the event summary to my driver portal. Pedestrian avoidance. Under coaching status, it said, review recommended. I kept driving because there was nowhere safe to stop yet. But after that, I stopped trusting my own small movements. Every time my foot shifted, I wondered if I had chosen it. Every time my eyes moved, I wondered if the camera had known first. Then another notification appeared at the top of the tablet. New safety clip pending. The pending clip did not finish right away. It just sat there in the corner of the tablet with a gray icon beside it. No title at first. No coaching status. Just a blank safety event waiting for the system to decide what I had done. That made me more nervous than the alerts. At least the first 2 had names. Wrong names maybe, but names. Right shoulder check. Pedestrian avoidance. This one was just waiting. Drew stayed on the line while I kept driving. He told me not to interact with the tablet unless I was stopped. He was right. I did not want the camera flagging phone use on top of everything else. The road bent slightly west. A crosswind pushed the trailer just enough that I corrected with my left hand. Nothing unusual. Then the tablet chimed again. The pending event got a title, Harsh Brake Avoided. I read it out loud before I meant to. Drew asked me to repeat it. I said it says Harsh Brake Avoided. He went quiet. I had not braked, not yet. A few seconds later, my headlights caught something black along the edge of the lane. A strip of shredded tire tread was lying half on the shoulder, half inside the white line. Not directly in my path, but close enough that hitting it with the steer tire would have been ugly. I eased left and came off the throttle. Not a hard brake, not even close. The truck passed it clean. My hand stayed steady, but my stomach did not. Drew asked if I was okay. I said yes because I was still driving, and that is what drivers say when they are still driving. He pulled the clip on his end. The road-facing camera had caught the tire tread after the event title appeared. The driver-facing camera showed me looking ahead, then shifting left, then slowing a little. Drew said the system may have generated a predictive risk label. I asked him if our cameras did that. He did not answer right away. Then he said not normally. That was the first honest thing anyone had said all night. I told him I wanted the camera checked. He told me to stop at the next staff truck stop if I could get there safely. Do not reset the tablet. Do not power cycle the camera. Do not cover the lens. Do not unplug anything. All of that could look like tampering in a safety review. I knew he was right. That made me feel trapped in a ridiculous way. The camera was the thing making me feel watched, and the only way to protect myself was to keep letting it watch me. The next truck stop was 30 miles ahead. 30 miles is not far until you are waiting for something in your own cab to tell you what you are about to do. I drove those miles slower than usual, not unsafe, just careful. I kept my eyes where they belonged. Road, mirrors, gauges, road again. I did not touch my face. I did not reach for coffee. I did not look too long at the shoulder. I caught myself performing for the camera. That was when the fear changed. Before I had been afraid the system was wrong. Now I was afraid it was learning how to make me act normal. The truck stop appeared as a pale glow past a low hill. I signaled early, entered slow, and chose a spot near the front under a row of lights. There were other trucks idling nearby. A fuel island clerk was visible through the glass. A camera dome hung above the side entrance. I set the brakes and sent Drew my location. The driver-facing camera light blinked green 3 times. I had seen the light blink before during uploads. Usually it happened in strong signal areas. This place barely had 2 bars. Drew asked me what happened. I told him the camera just blinked live upload. He checked the system. Then he said I'm not seeing a live feed request. I looked at the little black camera above the windshield. The green light went steady again. I did not leave the truck stop. That was the first choice all night that felt completely mine. The load could wait. Dispatch could explain it to the customer in the morning. If they wanted to argue, they had 3 safety events, 1 open call, and a camera doing things their own safety guy could not explain. Drew agreed with me. He told me to stay parked, keep the camera powered, and try to sleep if I could. Maintenance would route me through a company-approved shop after sunrise. He also told me not to sit there staring at the portal all night. That was good advice. I ignored it. The store was still open, so I went inside, bought a bottle of water I did not want, and came back to the cab. I locked both doors. I closed the curtains halfway, but left the windshield open enough that the front row lights came in. I wanted the cab bright. I wanted anyone walking past to see me. Then I opened the safety portal. 3 clips had processed. Right shoulder check. Pedestrian avoidance. Harsh brake avoided. They looked ordinary in the list. That bothered me. A manager could scroll past those titles later and see nothing but another tired driver on a night run. A little distraction. A little slowing. A minor road hazard. All coachable. All normal. Then a 4th clip appeared. Driver verbal warning. I stared at that one until the screen dimmed. I had not received a verbal warning from the system. Some trucks have lane alerts or following distance tones. Mine did not talk. It chimed. It flashed. It did not use words. I called Drew back before I opened it. He sounded less surprised this time, which made me feel worse. He asked me not to play it while driving. I told him I was still parked. He asked if anyone was in the cab with me. I almost laughed, but I did not. I said no. Then I opened the clip. The road-facing view was black for the first few seconds. Not dark road, black. Like the video had failed before the image came in. The driver-facing view worked. It showed me sitting behind the wheel shoulders, tight, both hands low on the wheel. The timestamp was from earlier before I reached the truck stop. The audio had engine hum and road noise. Then my own voice said quietly, "Not this one." I paused the clip. Drew asked what I heard. I did not answer right away. I played it again. Same road hum, same black road-facing screen, same driver-facing view of me staring forward. Not this one. It was my voice. Not loud, not dramatic, not like I was talking to someone. More like I had said it under my breath. The problem was not the words. The problem was when they happened. The timestamp put the clip 4 minutes before I passed a rest area I had almost pulled into. I remembered that rest area because I had seen it late, signaled once, then changed my mind. It looked too dark. No trucks in the front row, no lights near the far end. I had not said anything then. At least I did not remember saying anything. Drew told me audio can overlay from corrupted clips. He said sometimes files sync wrong when signal drops. He was trying to help. I could hear that. He was giving me every boring explanation he could find. I wanted one of them to work, but the driver-facing video showed my mouth move. Barely. Just enough. I watched it 3 times and hated myself for doing that. I hated that I could not remember the moment. I hated that the camera could prove something about me that my own memory would not give back. Drew told me to stop reviewing clips and get rest. I said I would. Before I closed the portal, one last system notice appeared. Driver facing away, monitoring reduced. I was still looking at the tablet when it showed up. Then I realized my body had turned slightly in the seat. My shoulders were angled away from the camera, like I was trying not to be seen. I slept in pieces, not real sleep. More like short blackouts with the truck stop lights bleeding through the curtains. Every time an engine changed pitch outside, I woke up. Every time my own cab creaked, I looked at the camera above the windshield before I looked anywhere else. By morning, the fear had turned into something dull and practical. That happens more than people think. Night makes things feel impossible. Daylight does not fix them, but it makes you handle them like paperwork. Dispatch routed me to a company-approved shop outside El Paso. Drew stayed attached to the case, which helped. He wrote the notes himself. Strange safety event timing, possible camera sync issue, driver requested inspection, vehicle safe to operate to maintenance location. I kept the camera on. I hated doing that. At the shop, a mechanic climbed into the cab with a tablet of his own and checked the unit above the windshield. He looked at the power connection, the mount the SD card slot, the road-facing lens, the driver-facing lens. He unplugged nothing until safety approved it over the phone. He was careful. That helped too. After 20 minutes, he said the camera was not loose. No visible damage, no bad mount, no cut wire, no water intrusion. The firmware was current. The upload history had some corrupted timestamps, but nothing he could point to and say there it is. That was the answer I expected. It still disappointed me. Drew called while I was parked in the shop lot. He said they had one more file from the night before, failed video upload, audio retained. He wanted me to listen and confirm whether it was my voice. I asked if I had to. He said no. Then he stopped talking because we both knew I was going to. The file came through the safety portal without a thumbnail, just a gray box, a timestamp, and the words, audio only. The timestamp was from 12:17 a.m. I remembered that part of the night because I had passed a dark rest area around 12:28. I had almost pulled in there before changing my mind. I had already told Drew that. It was the same rest area connected to the "not this one" clip. I pressed play. For a second there was only engine noise, low wind, a faint turn signal click maybe from another part of the file, or maybe from mine. Then I heard my own voice. "Don't pull over here." I stopped the audio. The shop lot was bright. Trucks were backing into bays. A mechanic was dragging an air hose across concrete. Nothing about that morning should have felt frightening. But my hand would not move off the tablet. I played the audio again. "Don't pull over here." Same voice, same quiet tone, like I was not warning myself, like I was repeating something. Drew asked if I remembered saying it. I wanted to say no quickly. I wanted to say it in a way that sounded strong and certain and normal. But after the night, I had certainty felt dishonest. I told him I don't remember saying it. That was the truth. The official report called it audio sync corruption. Possible file overlay from prior event. No collision risk, no driver violation, no repair required. Camera remained in service. That last part bothered me more than the rest. They left it in the truck. I drove that unit for 3 more weeks. Nothing like that happened again. No predicted alerts, no wrong pedestrian labels, no voice clips I could not remember, just normal safety nags. Following distance, lane drift, a hard break outside San Antonio that I fully earned. The company treated the whole thing like a bad night and a glitchy upload. Maybe that is all it was. A month later, I got an automated coaching summary in my email. Those things come out every few weeks. Usually they say slow down, increase, following distance, maintain mirror scan, stuff like that. This one had a note I had never seen before. Driver responds well to verbal warnings. There was no coach assigned to that line, no trainer name, no follow-up session, no comment from Drew. Just that sentence. I called safety and asked where it came from. They could not find a source note. They removed it from my profile 2 days later. Drew said it was probably generated from one of the corrupted events. Probably. I kept a screenshot. I still have it. Not because I think it proves anything to anyone else. It does not. It is just a sentence in a company system. Drivers get bad notes all the time. But sometimes I look at it and think about that audio clip. Don't pull over here. I never found out who the warning was for. Me. Or whatever the camera thought was riding with me. The first impossible thing that night was not a voice on the radio or a shadow in the mirrors. It was paperwork. That is what made it harder to talk about later. If a man says something followed his truck, people know how to react. They either believe him or they do not. If a man says a fuel receipt was wrong or a route packet printed the wrong way, most people stop listening before he gets to the part that matters. I had picked up outside St. Louis a little after 10. Dry van, sealed load, Oklahoma delivery by morning. Nothing high value, nothing hazmat, nothing that should have made the trip memorable. The trailer had sat backed against a dock with 2 other vans, and the guard barely looked up when he handed me the outbound slip. I did my usual checks: tires, lights, seal, trailer number, door latch. I took the seal photo, sent it in, and watched the upload finish before I pulled out. I remember that because I had started being careful about records by then. Not paranoid, careful. There is a difference though. People stop seeing it once your name ends up in enough incident notes. The first fuel stop was just off I-44. Big place, bright pumps, fast food counter, closed coffee, still on fuel desk, open behind scratched plexiglass. There were enough trucks around that the lot felt ugly but safe. That kind of safe where nobody is really looking at anyone else. I fueled on the company card topped off DEF and went inside for the receipt. The clerk was a young guy with earbuds hanging around his neck and a half-eaten sandwich beside the register. He printed the receipt, folded it once, and handed me a thicker bundle than I expected. I thought maybe the printer had spit out duplicate copies. I stepped aside near the coffee machines and sorted through it. First page was normal: fuel gallons, DEF, time, location, unit 4821, my driver number, nothing strange. The second page was not a fuel receipt. It was a route packet, folded clean, stapled at the top left. The first line read, Unit 4821, completed route, copy. I almost laughed when I saw it. Completed. I was not even 2 hours into the run. For a few seconds I thought it belonged to another driver, maybe a prior trip. Maybe the clerk grabbed something from the printer tray that had been sitting there all day. That happens. Fuel desks are messy places. Drivers leave permits, scale tickets, shower receipts half their lives on those counters. Then I saw the trailer number. It was mine. The seal number was mine too. The route listed St. Louis to Oklahoma, same receiver, same appointment window. Below that were checkpoints, fuel stop, toll plaza, scale bypass, yard entry, delivery confirmation. Some of the times had already passed. Most had not. The first future timestamp was 47 minutes ahead of where I was standing. I took a picture before I turned the page. That was habit by then. Photograph first, touch second, argue last. The clerk saw me staring and asked if everything was okay. I said, "This print with my receipt." He looked at the packet, then at the fuel printer behind him. "Must have," he said. "It came out together." He said it like that explained anything. I called dispatch from beside the coffee station with the packet resting flat on top of the trash can because I did not want to hold it anymore. The night dispatcher was named Tasha. I had worked with her before. She was practical, not warm, which was usually what you wanted at that hour. I told her I had received a completed route copy for a route I had not completed. She asked if it had the wrong unit number. I said no. She asked if it had the wrong trailer. I said no. Then she asked me to send pictures. I sent the fuel receipt first, then the cover page, then the checkpoint list. While she looked at them, I read the last line at the bottom of the first page. Route completed without driver exception. That was the phrase that made the truck stop feel quieter. Not delivered, not closed, completed without driver exception. Like the part where I might object had already been handled. I was still standing under fluorescent lights, smelling old coffee and diesel on my sleeves, when Tasha came back on the line. She said it's probably a bad packet merge. I wanted that to be true. Then I looked down at the next checkpoint. Toll Plaza entry, lane 6, time stamp 12:18 a.m. I checked the clock on my phone. 11:31 p.m. Tasha stayed on the phone while I walked back to the truck. That made me feel better in a small, practical way. Not because she believed me, I do not think she did yet, but because there was now another person attached to the problem, another voice in the record besides mine. I set the packet on the passenger seat and took one more picture of the cover page under the cab light. Then I put it in a fuel receipt sleeve, the clear plastic kind drivers keep, until the zipper breaks, and tucked it into the clipboard beside my bills. Tasha said the system sometimes merged documents when two loads had similar route codes. She said a completed packet could have attached to the wrong transaction if the printer queue glitched. She used words like queue and merge and template. They were boring words. I held on to them. Before pulling out, I checked the checkpoint list again. The first future line was the Toll Plaza at 12:18 a.m., lane 6. That was 40-something minutes away, depending on traffic and how long I sat there pretending not to stare at it. I told Tasha I was going to continue unless she told me to shut it down. She said the load was still active, my ELD showed me in transit, and the trailer seal was valid. There was no safety reason to abandon the run over a bad packet. She was right, that was the worst part. Every normal decision still pointed west, so I pulled out. I drove the first 20 miles carefully, the way you drive after seeing a state trooper in the median, even when you are not speeding. I kept waiting for something dramatic to happen. Lights behind me, a call from safety, a truck matching mine passing in the other lane. Nothing did. The road was ordinary, wet pavement in places. A few cars, two flatbeds running together ahead of me, my coffee cooling in the cup holder because I had forgotten to drink it. At 12:10, I started thinking maybe the packet would be wrong by a few minutes. Maybe that would be enough. A wrong time would make it feel like a bad day to pull again. At 12:14, traffic tightened near the toll approach. At 12:16, the electronic sign over lane 5 went red. A tanker drifted into lane 4. A pickup cut too close in front of me and then swerved toward the cash lane. I stayed where the signs and traffic pushed me. Lane 6. I said it out loud before I reached the booth. Tasha was still on the line. She asked what happened. I told her I was in lane 6. She did not say anything for a second. The toll reader beeped at 12:18. Not 12:17, not 12:19, 12:18. The receipt came through the toll app a few moments later. Lane 6, Unit 4821, trailer number, time, all of it normal, all of it exactly where the packet had said it would be. Tasha asked me to send a screenshot when I could safely stop. I told her I already knew what it would show. She said send it anyway. That was the right answer. A good dispatcher does not argue with a driver's fear. She turns it into documentation. I drove another 8 miles to a staffed travel plaza parked under lights and sent the screenshot. Then I unfolded the route packet again. The toll line was no longer just a future entry. It was a match. The next checkpoint listed a scale bypass response near the state line. Green bypass, no inspection, timestamp 1:02 a.m. I looked at the pre-pass unit on the windshield. It sat there dark and harmless. Tasha said she was escalating the document issue to compliance. She told me to keep the packet, keep photos, and not write on any of it. I asked if I should change route. She said not unless safety instructed it. Deviating without reason would create more problems than it solved. Again, she was right. Again, I hated that. Before I pulled out of the travel plaza, I looked at the packet one more time. Under the toll entry, there was a small note I had not noticed before. Driver did not request correction. That made no sense. I had already requested one. I had sent pictures. I had called dispatch. Tasha had opened a case. But the packet did not say I failed to notice it. It said I did not request correction. Like the version of me in the paperwork had seen the mistake and let it stand. I put the packet back in the plastic sleeve. Then I drove toward the state line with both hands on the wheel, trying not to think about lane 6 waiting for me before I got there. I tried to make the next entry wrong. Not in a reckless way. I need to be clear about that. I did not swerve across lanes or blow past a scale house just to prove a piece of paper was strange. I had a sealed trailer, a company truck, and a dispatcher on the line. There are only so many ways a driver can disagree with the road. before the road turns the disagreement into a violation. But I did try. The next checkpoint in the packet was the scale bypass near the state line. Green bypass, no inspection, 1:02 a.m. I told Tasha I was going to pull in manually if the sign gave me a legal option. Not because I wanted to talk to a scale officer at 1 in the morning, but because I needed one clean break in that packet. One place where the route copy said one thing and real life said another. She told me to do only what the signs directed. I said I would. The miles before the scale felt too clean. That is the only way I can describe it. No traffic bunching, no shoulder work, no weather, nothing to blame if the packet matched again. The pre-pass unit stayed dark until the last half mile. Then it blinked green, bypass. At the same time, the highway sign said trucks with green bypass may continue. I could have still pulled in if I claimed equipment uncertainty. Some drivers do when they are nervous, but that creates its own record. Unnecessary scale entry, driver confusion, delay, compliance question. Tasha was quiet on the line. I passed the scale. The clock on the dash said 1:02. For a second, I hated myself for obeying the sign. That sounds dramatic now, but at the time it felt like I had helped the packet come true. I drove another 10 minutes before speaking. Tasha said compliance had opened a document mismatch case. She gave me the case number. I wrote it on the back of an old fuel receipt instead of on the packet because she had told me not to mark the packet. My handwriting looked worse than usual, tight, slanted, like I was writing in a moving truck, which I was. The route copy had another stop listed after the bypass. A travel plaza west of the state line. Not fuel, not required, just a 31-minute stop with the note. Driver rested, no exception. I did not need to stop there. So I decided not to. That should have been easy. Nobody can force you into a travel plaza if your clock is good and the truck is running fine. Then the low coolant warning flashed, only for a second. It came on, chimed once and disappeared. I stared at the gauges. Temperature normal, pressure normal, no steam, no smell, no sign of anything wrong. It could have been a sensor flicker, it could have been a loose connection, it could have been nothing. It was also exactly the kind of thing a driver cannot ignore at night with a sealed load. The next safe place was the travel plaza listed in the packet. I told Tasha before I took the exit. She said, "That's the one on the copy." I said yes. She said, "Check it under lights, send photos, do not open the trailer." I pulled in at 1:26 a.m. The packet had the stop starting at 1:26. I parked near the fuel island, left the engine running, and checked under the hood with a flashlight. Coolant level looked fine. No leak, no smell, no wetness under the truck except old road mist. I took pictures anyway. While I was outside, a receipt printer at the fuel desk inside the store started cycling. I heard it when the automatic doors opened for another driver. That little dry machine sound carried across the front entrance. I went inside to buy a bottle of water I did not want. The clerk handed me a receipt before I asked for one. I told her I had not paid yet. She looked confused and checked the counter printer. The page had my unit number on it, not a purchase receipt. Final driver copy. The signature line at the bottom was blank. I stood there, with my wallet still in my hand, staring at an unsigned final copy for a stop I had tried not to make. The clerk asked if I wanted her to throw it away. I said no too quickly. I took a photo of it on the counter, then folded it into the plastic sleeve with the rest. The blank signature bothered me more than a forged one would have. A forged signature means somebody already decided for you. A blank one means something is waiting. I did not sign the blank copy. That seems obvious, but I remember actually thinking it through. Not because I wanted to sign it, because tired drivers do stupid paperwork things at counters. You sign the wrong line because someone points at it. You initial a receipt because there are 3 people behind you waiting for coffee. You tell yourself you will fix it later. I put both hands flat on the counter instead. The clerk looked uncomfortable. She was young, maybe 20, with a name tag that had been scratched until the letters were hard to read. She kept glancing at the printer like it might give her an answer if she waited long enough. I asked her if she could reprint the transaction history for my unit. She said she did not know how. I asked if a manager was there. She said he was in the back. While she went to get him, I took another photo of the blank final copy, then a photo of the store counter, the clock over the cigarette rack, and my own hand next to the paper, without touching the signature line. It felt excessive. It probably looked excessive. But by then I had stopped caring how careful looked. Tasha patched compliance into the call. The woman from compliance said her name was Erin. She had the calm voice of someone trained not to react until the company knew what category a thing belonged in. I explained it again. Completed route copy, printed before completion. Future checkpoint matched. Toll lane matched. Bypass matched. Travel plaza stop matched after a coolant warning. Final driver copy printed with a blank signature. Erin listened. Then she said, "Do you still have the original packet?" I said yes. "Do not alter it. Do not sign anything attached to it. Send photos of the new page." I sent them. The manager came out rubbing his face like he had been asleep in the office. He looked at the page, checked the printer tray, and said it must have been a fuel desk test print. I pointed to my unit number and the route code. He said sometimes these systems pull old stuff. I asked old from when. He did not have an answer. Erin asked me to request verbally and in writing that the completed route copy be marked disputed. She said that exact phrase. So I said it at the counter on the phone with Tasha and Erin both listening. I am requesting correction. I dispute the completed route copy. I have not completed this route. Then I typed it into the dispatch thread and sent it. For the first time that night, I felt like I had drawn a line that could not be bent. That feeling lasted maybe 4 minutes. My driver portal updated while I was still standing beside the coffee machine. New compliance note. I opened it with Erin still on the call. Driver refused correction. I read it out loud. No one answered right away. Then Erin said, "That may be how the system codes a document dispute." I said, "That is not what I did." She said she understood. I said, "It says I refuse correction." She said, "I understand. I'll add a clarifying note." I wanted to get angry. I really did. But anger did not fit in that store. Not with a tired clerk pretending not to listen, and a manager holding a test print he did not understand, and a compliance rep trying to repair language inside a system that had already chosen its own. Erin added the note. I watched it appear. Driver aware of completed route copy. Aware, not disputes, not reports, not requests correction. Aware. That word stayed with me longer than refused. Refused sounded like a lie. Aware sounded like a trap. It took the most passive part of what was happening to me and made it official. I told Erin I wanted to shut the rundown at a secure yard. She said there was no cargo exception, no seal breach, no mechanical failure confirmed, and no direct safety threat. If I abandoned the load at a public travel plaza, the incident would become bigger and harder to defend. She was not threatening me. I could hear that. She was telling me what the paperwork would do. Tasha found a compromise. There was a secure drop yard connected to the receiver route farther west, staffed by a guard through the morning. If I continued there, I could hand the trailer off or wait for a supervisor with the seal intact. The route packet showed the final receiver, but not that yard. That mattered. It was the first stop not already printed in the completed copy. I agreed. Before leaving, I asked the manager to write a short note on store letterhead saying the final driver copy printed before I purchased anything. He would not do letterhead, but he signed the back of a plain receipt and wrote, "Printed in error at counter." It was not much. I took it anyway. Back in the truck, I put that receipt into the sleeve with the packet. It was the only piece of paper in there that felt like it belonged to the night I was actually living. Then I noticed the route packet had one more page stuck to the back cover. I had not seen it before. It was thin, almost like a photocopy. At the top in small gray print, it said, "Second presentation pending." I did not pull back onto the interstate right away. The page on the back of the packet was too thin to be part of the original bundle. It had that cheap copier feel, the kind of paper that curls if you leave it in the sun on a dashboard. The print was light in places like the toner had almost run out. Second presentation pending. I read it 3 times and still did not know what it meant. Tasha was still on the phone. Erin from compliance had dropped off to open a formal case, or that was what she said she was doing. I told Tasha about the extra page. She asked me to send a photo. I did. Then I waited in the cab while the truck idled, and the travel plaza lights made everything outside look flat and yellow. A few other drivers walked past with coffee and shower bags. None of them looked at my truck. None of them knew I was sitting there, afraid of paperwork. Tasha came back after a few minutes and said she could not see that page in the system. I asked if that was good or bad. She said it means I don't know where it came from. That was the first answer she had given all night that did not try to make the thing smaller. The secure yard was 90 miles ahead. I had enough clock to reach it. I had a documented reason to go there. The packet did not list it. That gave me something to hold on to. I drove. The road after that felt less like a road and more like a form being filled out 1 mile at a time. I hate saying it that way because it sounds dramatic. It was not dramatic. The truck ran fine. The trailer tracked straight. The gauges stayed normal. I passed gas stations' closed exits, a state maintenance truck parked on the shoulder with its amber light spinning. Everything looked real. That was the problem. About 30 miles from the secure yard, Tasha called again. She said Aaron wanted me to check the packet for any loose pages that might not belong to the current route, not while driving, at the yard if I made it there clean. She said it carefully, like she was trying not to make it sound like an order. I told her I understood. The yard sat behind a chain-link fence off a service road not far from the interstate. It had a small guard shack, 2 rows of dropped trailers, and 1 bright pole light over the entrance. Not a big company terminal, more like a contracted holding yard where loads went when schedules got ugly. The guard took my driver number through the window. He typed it in. Then he frowned. I knew that frown by then. He said, "You already checked in?" I said no. He turned his monitor slightly away from me, not to hide it exactly, more out of habit. I could still see the top line. Unit 4821 route copy review. Check-in time 2:44 a.m. The clock in my cab said 2:41. I asked him to look again. He did. Then he said the system had probably pre-staged the entry when dispatch sent the case. That was plausible. I wanted it to be plausible so badly that I nodded before he finished. He gave me a visitor pass and told me to park along the fence under the light. I did. I set the brakes, locked the doors, and finally opened the packet all the way across the passenger seat. That was when the yellow ticket slid out. It was folded once tucked between the completed route copy and the thin page marked "Second Presentation Pending." Yellow carbon paper, old-fashioned, the kind of copy you still see at scales in small yards because some systems never fully die. There was a stamp near the top, K117. I did not know what that meant. Not then. It was not from my route, not from that night, not from that state. The trailer number field was blank, or maybe washed out from the copy. The carrier line was partly cut off. The date did not match. Nothing about it belonged with my load. Behind it was another photocopied sheet, clipped crookedly with no paperclip actually there. I mean, the mark was there. A small dent at the corner. A rust-colored half circle pressed into the paper. But no clip. The top half of the page had been cut off. Only the lower header remained. Reference case. Under that were 4 lines in smaller print. Driver disputed first observation. Driver retained corrected copy. Driver continued route after documentation conflict. Behavior pattern usable. I sat there so long the cab fan cycled down and back up. Tasha asked if I was still with her. I told her yes. I did not read the lines to her right away. I do not know why. Maybe because saying them out loud would make them part of the call record, and by then I no longer trusted records to hold the same shape after I touched them. I took pictures instead. Wide shot, yellow ticket, K117 stamp. Reference case page, the dent where the paperclip had been. The whole packet spread across the passenger seat with my current bills beside it, so nobody could say I mixed up the night later. Then I read the lines to Tasha. She did not interrupt. When I finished, she said, "That is not in your load file." I said, "It is in my truck." There was a difference. A big one. The guard knocked on my door 5 minutes later. I nearly dropped the phone. He stood outside holding a clipboard and a pen on a chain. He said the yard needed my signature to confirm I had arrived for document review. Not delivery, not drop. Document review. I looked at the clipboard through the glass. The top page said, "Second presentation." I did not open the door. I cracked the window just enough to speak and told him I was not signing anything until compliance reviewed it. He looked tired, not threatening. He said, "They said you'd say that." I asked who. He looked down at the clipboard, like the answer might be printed there. Then he said, "It's just in the note." He turned the clipboard slightly. Under the signature line in small type was one sentence. Driver hesitates before signing disputed forms. I did not sign the clipboard. The guard did not argue with me. That helped and made it worse at the same time. He just stood there in the pale yard light with the pen hanging from its little chain like he had expected me to refuse and was waiting for the next box to check. I told him compliance was on the phone. He said okay, not annoyed, not confused, just okay. Then he turned the clipboard back toward himself and wrote something on the lower half of the page. I could not see what. I asked him to stop writing until compliance spoke to him directly. He looked up at me through the fast cracked window and said, "I'm not changing anything. I'm just noting driver response." Driver response. By then those 2 words felt like a hand on the back of my neck. Tasha told me not to sign and not to open the door. She was calmer than I was, but her voice had changed. Earlier she sounded like a dispatcher handling a document error. Now she sounded like a person trying not to say something could not be happening. Aaron came back onto the call a few minutes later. She asked the guard for his name and yard ID. He gave both. She asked him what document he was holding. He read the top line. Second presentation. Erin asked who sent it. The guard said it came with the route copy review request. Erin said she had not sent a route copy review request to the yard. The guard looked embarrassed then. Not scared. Embarrassed like he had just repeated bad information in front of a supervisor. He stepped back toward the shack to check his terminal. I stayed in the cab with the doors locked. The packet was still spread across the passenger seat. The yellow K117 ticket sat on top of my current bills. The reference case page was beside it, pale and curled at the corner. Behavior pattern usable. I kept looking at that line, not because I understood it, because I was afraid I did. After 10 minutes, Erin told me to move the truck to a dockside holding lane inside the yard and wait for daylight. The guard would open the gate. I was not to sign anything. I was not to hand over the packet. I was not to break the trailer seal. That was the most human instruction I had heard all night. So I followed it. I parked under a brighter light, near a row of empty trailers, and shut the truck down. For the first time since the fuel stop, the cab went quiet. No engine, no road hum, just the tick of cooling metal and the faint electric buzz from the pole light outside. I sat there until the sky turned gray. The receiver supervisor arrived around 6. Real person, real coffee, real frustration. He walked up with Erin on speakerphone and said he did not care what the completed route copy said. He needed the freight at the seal matched and there was a dock open. That sounded like rescue. Maybe it was. I watched him compare the seal number from my original bills to the seal on the trailer. He wrote it down by hand. I photographed him doing it. He did not complain. The trailer was opened at door 3. The freight came off clean. No shortage, no damage, no extra pallet, no hidden person in the trailer, nothing movie-like, nothing that would have made the story easier to tell. Just a clean delivery after a night of documents insisting the delivery had already happened. When the bills were ready, the supervisor slid the correct delivery form across a metal counter inside the receiving office. I read every line before I signed. I only signed the delivery form, not the route copy, not the second presentation sheet, not anything with K117 on it. My signature looked bad. I remember that clearly. The pen skipped on the first letter because the counter had a seam under the paper. The last part of my name dragged down because my hand was tired. I even took a picture of it after signing because by then I knew better than to trust a signature just because it came from my own hand. Erin told me the incident would stay open until they reviewed the scans. Tasha told me to go sleep. I did. For almost 2 weeks, nothing happened. No violation, no cargo claim, no safety write-up, no angry call from dispatch. The company marked the run delivered and paid the miles. I started to think maybe the whole thing would be filed away as one of those stories drivers tell at fuel islands, when the coffee is bad and everyone wants a reason to stay awake. Then the final scanned packet came through. It was attached to an email from compliance with a bland subject line. Route documentation review closed. Most of the packet looked normal. Bills, seal record, arrival time, receiver signature, the corrected delivery form I had actually signed. My ugly, tired signature was there, slanted and dragged at the end, exactly like the photo on my phone. Then I saw another page. Driver confirmed route, copy accurate. I did not remember signing it. I know people say that when they are caught. I know how it sounds. But I did not sign that page. I would remember that page. I would remember those words. Below them was my name. Not exactly my signature, better than mine. Cleaner. No tired slant, no skipped first letter, no drag at the end. It looked like my signature after somebody had studied the way I tried to make it look when I cared. At the bottom of the page, almost hidden in the scanner shadow, there was a small system note. Driver accepted after second presentation. Under that was a reference number, 4821-R. I stared at it until the letters stopped looking like letters. Then I opened the photos from the yard again. The K117 ticket, the reference case page, the line that said behavior pattern usable, the paperclip mark with no paperclip. K117 had not been there to explain my night. It had been there to show where my night was going. I called Erin. She said the page must have been generated during closure. She said the signature could have been pulled from a receiver scan, distorted by processing, and placed on the wrong confirmation page. She said she would remove it from the visible file. I asked if it would be deleted. She did not answer quickly enough. Then she said it will be corrected. Corrected. Not deleted. Not removed. Corrected. A week later, the visible file changed. The confirmation page was gone. The route review showed no driver exception, no refusal, no violation, and no open correction. On paper, it was the best possible outcome. But I still have the first scan. I keep it with the pictures from that night, the fuel desk bundle, the Lane 6 toll record, the blank final driver copy, the yellow ticket stamped K117, the second presentation sheet, and the page with my better signature. I know what my signature looks like when I am tired. That one looked like mine after somebody had more time. Some drivers say the road forgets everything by morning. The tire marks fade, the receipts get thrown away, the camera files overwrite themselves. But records do not always disappear. Sometimes they stay in a folder somewhere, waiting for the next driver to match the pattern. Different truck, different route, same thing already written down.